Miami-Dade added roughly 180,000 residents between 2020 and 2025. Tech employment in the county grew 28% in just 3 years. And according to Miami Realtors, million-dollar home sales now account for about 22% of all South Florida transactions. Nationally, that number is closer to 10%. So when people say Miami is booming, they are not wrong. But booming cities also create a lot of noise. A lot of big claims, shiny listings, every neighborhood being sold as the next big thing. And if you're relocating from outside Florida, that noise can get very expensive because the Miami that looks amazing in a 60-second video and the Miami you actually live in every day can be two very different things. I'm Milton Andrade with Polaris Advisors at Compass. I have been helping buyers and sellers navigate the Miami market since 2002. My team and I have closed over 750 transactions. So in this video, I'm going to give you the full picture. What is actually driving Miami's growth? 5 neighborhoods people are genuinely asking me about. And the hidden costs that catch buyers off guard after they move here. Because yes, Miami is booming. But that does not mean every neighborhood is right for you. And it definitely does not mean every property is a good buy. So let's get into it. Miami's population is closing in on 500,000 people inside the city limits. But that number actually undersells what is happening because the real growth story is happening across the entire Miami-Dade market. And between 2020 and 2025, Miami-Dade County added roughly 180,000 new residents. And the city's annual growth rate is still sitting above 2%. For a mature metro, that is significant. Miami led all 37 major U.S. metropolitan divisions in employment growth in March 2025. Non-farm employment rose 1.6% year over year, compared with a national average of about 1.2%. That may not sound dramatic at first, but in a large metro, that kind of outperformance matters. Tech employment in Miami-Dade grew by 28% between 2022 and 2025. That's 3 years. And then finance firms followed, like Citadel, 0.72. Millennium Management. These companies aren't moving here just for the sunshine. They're looking at the talent. They're looking at the taxes, quality of life, and a city that increasingly functions as a serious global business hub. And Miami is not just an American story anymore. More than 1,400 multinational companies have their Latin American or Caribbean headquarters here in Miami. And that is part of why Miami feels different from other U.S. cities. You're not just buying into a local housing market. You're buying into a global city. And that global demand affects pricing. And it affects how buyers and sellers need to think. So, yes, the growth is real. The economic drivers are real. But none of that tells you where to live or what you're walking into when you get here. That is where the neighborhood conversation matters. Area number 1. Coconut Grove. There is a reason I have been selling in Coconut Grove for more than 2 decades, and I still believe it is one of the most defensible places to buy in Miami. You cannot build your way out of it because there's not much land left to build on. Southwest Coconut Grove posted a median sale price of around $2.5 million in March of 2026. That was a major jump from the year before. Now, I want to be careful with that number because in a small luxury market, 1 or 2 large sales can move the median significantly. So, I would not treat that as a straight line trend, but the direction is clear. Coconut Grove is a luxury market. Entry level here is not $500,000. For a renovated single family home with any meaningful lot size, you're usually well into the 7 figures. And the buyers competing at this level are financially sophisticated. They're asking about insurance, flood risk, lot elevation, school options, roof age, maintenance, and long-term resale before they make offers. Now, I see this on almost every deal. Who is Coconut Grove for? It's for buyers who want to feel like they live somewhere special, not just somewhere convenient. The Grove has a level of walkability and neighborhood character that most of Miami does not have. Marinas, a historic core, the best restaurants, coffee shops, a village feel that survived even as the city around it became denser. And long-term Miami buyers come here because they understand how hard it is to replicate this kind of neighborhood. The honest trade-off is simple. You're going to pay a premium for Coconut Grove. There is no way around that. And one more thing. If schools are part of your decision, don't wait until after you find the house to research them. Private school demand in and around Coconut Grove can be intense. I've seen relocating families plan around a specific school and then have to rethink their entire timeline because the wait list was longer than they expected. And that is not a reason to avoid the Grove. It is a reason to plan ahead. Area number 2, Coral Gables. If Coconut Grove is the neighborhood where people stay forever, Coral Gables is the neighborhood where people think they understand the market because they know the name. And I say that with respect because Coral Gables looks easy to understand from the outside. You have beautiful architecture, you have tree-lined streets, you have an established neighborhood with a strong reputation. But underneath that surface, Coral Gables is one of the most internally fragmented luxury markets in Miami. The difference between one submarket and another can be enormous. In one part of Coral Gables, you may be looking at around $1,300 a square foot. In Gables Estates, the ultra-prime waterfront tier, that number can climb to over $3,000 per square foot. And that is not a small difference. That means Coral Gables is not one market. It is really several markets inside one city, and they behave very differently. The citywide median may sit at around $1.3 million, but that number can be misleading if you take it too literally. It does not tell you whether the house needs $400,000 in updates. It does not tell you if you are comparing a dry lot home, a waterfront property, a historic home, or a newer construction home. Right now, Coral Gables is more buyer favorable than it was during the peak frenzy. Homes are sitting longer. Inventory has increased. Sellers who are not priced correctly are not getting the same attention. So for the right buyer, that creates opportunity, but only if you know which submarket you're in. So who is Coral Gables for? That's established buyers who want a true residential neighborhood, tree-lined streets, walkability in certain pockets, strong public and private school access, and long-term price stability. International buyers from Latin America are super active here. So are executives, professionals, and families who want a neighborhood that feels established and protected. The trade-off is the cost. Coral Gables is expensive. The overall cost of living is higher, and you're paying for quality of place. In many areas, you get it. But you need to know which parts of Coral Gables justify the number being asked, because not all of them do. Area number 3 is Brickell. Most people who ask me about Brickell have already seen the skyline. They have watched the drone footage. They know it's Miami's financial district. What they usually don't know is that Brickell condo market right now is one of the most buyer-friendly it has been in years. Brickell's condominium market has been sitting at a very elevated level of inventory. A balanced market is usually around 6 months. The median condo sale price in Brickell has been around the mid-$600,000 range, but the story changes depending on which segment you're in. A $650,000 condo and a $1.5 million luxury residence are not competing for the same buyer. They do not have the same financing profile. New construction makes this even more interesting. Several ultra-luxury towers are delivering or pre-selling in Brickell at prices far above existing resale inventory. And that creates two effects. First, some resale units start to look like relative value compared with new construction. But second, older resale buildings that do not have the finishes, amenities, reserves, or financial strength to compete, they're gonna fall behind. This is exactly why I look at buildings the way I look at companies. You have to look under the hood. A beautiful unit in a poorly managed building is not an asset. It is a liability with a view. So, who is Brickell for? Brickell is for urban buyers, professionals, international buyers, people who want and need walkability, and people who want restaurants, convenience, and the feeling of being in the middle of everything. It can also be interesting for cash buyers who understand the inventory signal and want to negotiate from a stronger position. The honest trade-off is this: Brickell is a condo market. If your dream version of Miami includes a yard, quiet street, and schools within walking distance, Brickell may not be your neighborhood. But if you want to be in the center of the city and you want one of the few moments where buyers actually have leverage, Brickell deserves a serious look. Before I keep going, I want to pause here because the first 3 neighborhoods show you the large pattern. Coconut Grove has scarcity. Coral Gables has prestige and submarket complexity. Brickell has urban energy and buyer leverage in certain condo segments. Each one has a real case for it, and each one has a real trade-off. That is why I built my free relocation guide. Not to tell you every neighborhood is amazing, but to help you start thinking through which version of Miami actually fits your life, your budget, your commute, your school needs, your lifestyle, and your real monthly cost of ownership. You can download the guide using the link in the description. It covers neighborhoods, trade-offs, insurance, flood exposure, and ownership costs that most buyers do not fully understand until they're already deep into the process. Let's talk about one neighborhood that I think a lot of relocation buyers underestimate. Area number 4, Edgewater. If I had to pick one neighborhood in Miami that most relocation buyers underestimate, it would probably be Edgewater. Not because it is the best neighborhood in the city, but because buyers who look at Brickell, Coconut Grove, or Coral Gables and they feel priced out often skip past Edgewater without understanding what they are skipping. Edgewater sits along Biscayne Bay, just north of downtown and east of Wynwood. It gives you quick access to Brickell, the Design District, Miami Beach, and the Arts and Culture Corridor. But it has a more residential feel than Brickell. Between 2015 and 2024, Edgewater saw a major population growth and price appreciation. What has already moved significantly, it is still not priced like Coconut Grove or the top tier of Coral Gables. Current pricing varies widely because the product mix is wide. You have older condo buildings, you have newer luxury towers, bayfront units, and projects that are setting new price benchmarks. And that wide range is exactly why Edgewater can be interesting. But it is also why buyers need to be careful. Who is Edgewater for? People who want bay views. People who want to be close to Wynwood, downtown, midtown, and the design district. Young professionals stepping up. And buyers who are paying attention to the growth trajectory more than the current comfort of the address. The honest trade-off is that Edgewater is a two-speed market. The right building, the right view, and the right price, that's going to perform super well. But the wrong building or the wrong unit can just sit. This is not a neighborhood where I would tell someone to buy based only on price per square foot. So if you walk into Edgewater without local context, it is easy to buy the wrong thing. Area number 5, Morningside Park. Most buyers who are serious about a single-family home in Miami, they go straight to Coconut Grove at Coral Gables. It is Miami's first historic district. The homes are often Mediterranean revival and architecturally significant in a way that very little of Miami is. It is also guard-gated, and it is small. Supply is very constrained. In that sense, it shares some of the scarcity characteristics that people like about Coconut Grove, but without the Coconut Grove price tag. What I can tell you is that the surrounding corridor has changed significantly. The Mimo district has improved. The Biscayne Boulevard corridor has more activity. The Magic City Innovation District and other nearby developments are changing the conversation around the area. So who is Morningside for? It's buyers who want a historic single-family home in a quiet, gated enclave with an amazing park on the bay. Buyers who appreciate architecture. Buyers who want to be close to the urban core without living in a high-rise. The honest trade-off is that the surrounding neighborhood still has rough edges, but they're smooth enough. With Morningside, you're buying into a neighborhood where the internal experience and the surrounding corridor may feel a little different, but that is an opportunity. It can also be a risk. It depends on your timeline and your tolerance for change. Let's get into the reality checks, because this is the part nobody puts in the relocation brochure. Reality check number 1, infrastructure and traffic. Here's the thing nobody puts in their Miami relocation pitch deck. Traffic is a real part of daily life here. Miami is one of the most congested metros in the United States. And if you pick the wrong neighborhood and your actual daily routine, you can actually change your entire experience of living here. Where you live in relation to where you work, where your kids go to school, where you spend your weekends, and where your daily errands are, that matters more in Miami than many buyers realize. Because Miami does not have a subway system that solves this problem. The Metro Rail exists. The Metro Mover helps in the urban core. Some areas have real walkability, but for most people, Miami is still a car city. That means your commute should be part of your neighborhood decision from the beginning, not after you fall in love with the house or the neighborhood. And what I make clients do sometimes is I make them drive during rush hour from work to meet me at the home. I do that on purpose because I want you to feel that, so you know going forward whether it's something you can tolerate. Your neighborhood choice is the workaround, so choose correct. Reality check number 2. Schools. Miami-Dade County Public Schools is an A-rated district. Miami-Dade is the largest school district in Florida, serving hundreds of thousands of students across hundreds of schools. But if you're relocating with children, the district rating is not enough because you're not buying into the entire district. You're buying into a specific school zone based on your address. And in a district this large, the difference from one school to another can be significant. Some of the highest performing schools in Florida are in Miami-Dade, and some schools perform well below the district average. Do not fall in love with the house first and check the school zone later. That is backwards. You need to understand the school assignment before you make the offer. I have seen relocating families arrive with a school plan that assumed enrollment only to find out that the wait list changed the entire timeline. This doesn't mean Miami is a bad school market. It means Miami requires planning. That is the part you need to verify. Reality check number 3, hidden costs. This is the section that changes the most conversations I have with buyers. It's the costs that show up after closing. So let's start with homeowners insurance. For buyers relocating from out of state, this is usually the number that hits the hardest because they're used to a much lower number. Miami homeowners insurance has increased significantly over the past several years. And while averages are helpful, the real number depends on the specific property. The roof age, the wind mitigation, flood zones, distance to the coast, construction type, and that is before flood insurance. A standard homeowner's policy doesn't cover flood damage, and that's a major point. Many buyers assume that flood insurance only matters if a property is in a high-risk zone. But in Florida, and especially with certain insurers like Citizens Property Casualty, flood coverage is required or strongly recommended even outside the highest risk zones. Then there are property taxes. The seller may have owned the home for 20 years. They may have a low assessed value because of the Save Our Homes cap. Their tax bill may look very manageable. But when you buy the property, that assessed value resets closer to market value, and your tax bill can be dramatically higher than what the seller was paying. And this catches most buyers off guard all the time. The homestead exemption is going to help you over time, but timing matters. You have to own and occupy the property as of January 1st to apply for that year's exemption with a March 1st deadline. And this is why I tell buyers not to budget based on the seller's tax bill. Your banker may want to qualify you with that bill, but that's a historical number. You need the projected number based on your purchase price. And in condos, there's another layer, and that's HOA fees, insurance, reserves, SIRS, Structural Integrity Reserve Study reports, milestone inspections, assessments, building repairs. These costs can completely change the affordability of a unit. The listing may show you the purchase price and the monthly HOA, but it does not always show you the future assessment risk. It does not show you the insurance quote. That is why I run the real numbers before my clients get emotionally committed. And these are exactly the costs that do not show up here. Everything we covered in this video, all of it comes down to one question. Which part of Miami actually fits your life, your budget, and your plan? That is the question that I help my clients answer. Not by saying that every neighborhood is great, but by looking at the real numbers, the real trade-offs, and the way you actually want to live. If you're thinking about relocating to Miami and you want to understand the real trade-offs before you make a move, download my free Miami relocation guide using the link in the description. If you're further along and you want to talk through your specific situation, you can call or text me directly at 954-629-9952. You can also schedule using the link for a 30-minute call. I'm Milton Andrade with Polaris Advisors at Compass. I specialize in helping relocating buyers understand Miami neighborhood by neighborhood, building by building, before you commit to anything. And I'll see you in the next video.